let's say, telling or important thing about that Mahabharata background? What does it tell us? Where is the Gita set? Where does it happen? On the battlefield, and this battlefield is where?
Kurukshetra.
And Kurukshetra means? The field of action. In other words, where is Kurukshetra apart from a geographical location on the Indian subcontinent? Look at Emma, everybody. This is the Kshetra, yes? So this is where the Gita happens. And who is in conflict in this field of action? Arjuna. And Arjuna is one of the Pandavas, yeah? And what did we say they represent? These 5 sons of divine beings or divine energies. They represent these, let's say, innate divine capacities we have as sentient human beings with conscience. Yeah? And these are the 5 groups of powers that help us attune to the light of our conscience. Yeah? These are the powers that can help us move through life in a state of at-one-ment and become more and more at-one-mented as life goes on. Yeah? And who are the other? The Kauravas. And what did we say about Kauravas? What do they represent? The force of habit, yeah? The force of that which we have already done. The force of Kuru, Kra. So we mentioned their name is related to the verb to do, to make. So the Kauravas represent the force of those tendencies that have already gained traction within our system. Our grooves, our impatterned ways of being, yes? And what did we say about the Kaurava habits? What tendency do they have? What do they like to grip to or cling to? Another name for the Kaurava habit, if we go to a different archetypal setup on a battlefield where another great yogic warrior called Rama is about to face his nemesis, his alter ego. Ravana is a, what do you call him in Sanskrit? The type of being. But yes, but Ravana is a Rakshasa, yes? So he's protecting the status quo. So the Kauravas, they're the force of habit. They're the things the mind has already experienced. We mentioned that the mind, amazing power tool though it is, has this particular serious limitation that it struggles with things it has not previously experienced. And so the mind will often prefer the uncomfortable comfort zone of our familiar but tragically limiting habitual patterns to the unknown realms of that which it has never yet tasted or savoured. However, deeper than the mind, there are these parts of us that, in spite of the mind's, let's say, shrinking tendencies, still yearn for that fullness. What do we say about where we have come from? We all come from the womb, and we all come from unity. And so that we have this longing to return to this unity. And so this Pandava tendencies, they keep urging us towards the type of engaged presence that will allow us to reconcile these limiting tendencies and bring back a state, or invite a state of wholeness and oneness, yeah? And that is the battle, if you like. So the aim of the battle is what? Or what is it not? The yogic warrior is not concerned with killing the enemy. What is the yogic warrior's aim in terms of the enemy? To transform the enemy into who? Into our allies or our friends or our supporters. Yeah? How do we do that?
Meeting them, turning towards.
So by acknowledging them, by meeting them, by giving them some attention, so we can enter into a dialogue with them that might allow us to learn from them and find out those places that are actually potentially available for that reconciliation, that integration. Yeah? From last week, any other key points just with regards to the background? Just told you weren't here, but you could say it.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
So those negative tendencies, do they relate to the word samskara?
So samskara, we've all heard this word, yeah? Is anybody hearing this word for the first time? There's another word that's very similar to samskara that we're going to recite in a little bit this evening. What is that word? Sanskrit or samskrita. So krita is the past participle of the verb kra, to do or to make. Kara is the idea of making. So Surya Namaskara, to make the namaha towards Surya. So when we have samskara, it means a very well-formed pattern. It's a habit that's well made, it's well established. Just like Samskrita is a language that is very thoroughly encoded, it's very well put together. It's a system that's very thoroughly devised and like, let's say, encoded, established. So a samskara is any pattern, any habit that is well established. It could be the most wonderful supportive habit, it could be the most limiting habit. So when it's a samskara, it means it's well made. So later in the chapter, one of the main topics that Krishna will start to elaborate in the second half of the chapter, it's a main focus, and it's a main focus of the whole text, the whole teaching, is how to come out of karma bandhana, the binding influence of action, the cycle of desire, action, impression. We do something, it leaves an impression. If the impression is favourable, we tend to want more and look at that area of experience through a veil of, oh, I like these things, I want more. And if we have an unfavourable experience, we tend to want less or to avoid. And then we tend to meet that type of situation through a veil that is slightly not so, let's say, not so keen, not so enthusiastic. So there's every action leaves an impression, and this impression then starts to influence the way that we see the reality. And the idea in yoga is to remove these veils of the accumulated force of our conditionings and our impressions, so we can actually see things as they are, in a total way, you might say, or an impartial way, in a way that is no longer riven by these schismatic or limiting ideas. So samskaras can, in some ways, inhibit that seeing in a disinhibited way. Because if we have the habit of always associating certain things with certain ideas, those ideas can blinker us or blind us to the reality of things. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So this is going to get elaborated a lot more. So dealing with samskaras in a, let's say, skillful way is one of the main aims of Krishna's teaching. And he will define yoga later in this chapter as karmasu kaushalam, skillfulness in the things that we do. And he recognizes when you're a human being, you cannot avoid acting, you cannot avoid making choices and doing things, but how to act skillfully is one of the main focuses of his teaching. So this is all to come in the second half of chapter 2 and in chapter 3, which I hope to do on a future visit to Glasgow. But now, have we kind of covered the main points about Mahabharata background? What were the main, so then how did the chapter begin? We've come to the battlefield and Arjuna has collapsed because what does he see all around him? His relatives, his teachers. In other words, the people who normally he thinks he is fighting for. The people who normally, having them in mind, his conscience feels clear when he goes to the battle, ready and enthusiastic to exercise his art and craft as a warrior. But this day, on the battlefield, all around, he sees all the people, or people representing all the families that are dearest to him. And so he has this crisis. And what did we say about this crisis? When is this? Any time that we... Yes, Susan. Say.
No, it's okay. Just a bit, it's that internal conflict that we can all have at any stage.
Any time, and not just once. Yeah, but again and again this will happen. But any time we find ourselves in a situation where the rules that we have lived by are not quite adequate or vast or inclusive enough to deal with the situation at hand, then we're in this situation. Basically, the codes that Arjuna has relied on up to now, at this point, they're no longer quite vast enough. And this overwhelms him. He doesn't know what to do. And what state is he in at the beginning of the chapter? Ashrupurna Kulikshanam. Yeah? His ikshana, his aspect, is flowing tears. What did we say about that?
Cleansing.
It's cleansing, yeah? So it's interesting. He's on the floor, but then he allows himself to weep. So when the warrior lets go of his expectation of how he needs to be, to the degree that he allows himself to weep on the battlefield, it's like he is washing clean his vision. He is allowing himself to see in a different way than he might have ever seen before. Yeah? So there he is, collapsed, he's crying, and then what happens? Fortunately for Arjuna, who is with him. Fortunately for us, who is with us all the time. Who do we say Krishna represents? So it's the conscience, yeah? The light of conscience, the pilot light that's always there, pulsating in the cave of our heart, in the dark recesses of our deeper essence. And so if we allow ourselves to open and receive it, it can speak to us. And what's the very first thing? Well, actually, let's recite now. Let's recite the first 8 verses together, yeah? Yes.
Okay. Would he also, Krishna, represent consciousness or specifically conscience?
Definitely you could say Krishna represents consciousness, but in the context of the dialogue, Arjuna means pure, yeah, or bright. So Arjuna, you can see, is like he's the individual soul, or is the individual human being of pure intent, who is sincere, who is making an honest effort. There's that when we make ourselves sincere, when we ask honestly, then we can receive help from the conscience. There's that the conscience is always speaking to us, but sometimes it happens in life that our connection to conscience gets interfered with by the force of our conditionings and our habits. So depending on the context and the perspective we're looking from, you could say Krishna represents consciousness, but with the idea of the battlefield, I think Krishna particularly is really the guidance of conscience, I would say, in this dialogue. Vishnu, who Krishna is considered to be an incarnation of, just like Shiva, literally these two words, they mean that which contains all of that which is within conscious existence. So Krishna is said to be the most full avatar or incarnation of Vishnu, but the particularity of Krishna here as the teacher is that he's a human being and he is Bhagavan. So he's a human being who is no longer divided. He's a human being who's living in a state of completion. But nonetheless, he's a human being. So Krishna, distinct from Vishnu or Narayana, specifically has that human quality, which makes him even more qualified to be the guru, or to be... What did we say Krishna was last week? We spoke about the Upanishads, yeah? Being the cows, yeah? And Krishna being the milker. So he, just as somebody, Krishna, Gopala, grew up in a cow herding community and so is qualified to, he knows what to do in terms of gathering the milk from the cows. Similarly, in the context of giving a teaching for human beings, Krishna is qualified because he has grown up within the human condition. So sometimes people have the idea, oh, well, if God gives a teaching, that's all well and good, that's God. What about us? How do we work with it? But there's that Krishna, though divine, has grown up with human beings. By the time he gives this teaching, he's thoroughly familiar with the human condition, even within his own incarnation. He will go on later in the Gita to say, I've been born many times, Arjuna, so have you. I remember them all. You don't. That's the only difference. So the idea is, he's not just the supreme consciousness, he also knows what it means to be an individual consciousness. And so he's the perfect teacher to advise the human who's feeling overwhelmed or in need. Shall we begin? So everybody, if we just go to there's the sheet with the Upanishads on, to turn the... So we're going to sing the 2 verses to the Gita. So this verse here, Sarva Upanishado Gavaha, we'll sing this one to the Gita, and then we'll sing an invocation to Krishna, and then we'll recap. We'll sing 8 syllables at a time, the first 8 verses, and we'll do the 9 and 10 as well. Okay, so we'll start with the mantra Om together, and then we'll do call and response. Sarvopanishado Gavaha together. Sarvopanishado Gavaha Dogda Dogda Gopalanandana Gopalanandana Partho Vatsaha Partho Vatsaha Sudhir Bhokta Sudhir Bhokta Duktam Duktam Gitamritam Mahati Gitamritam Mahati Vasudeva Vasudeva Sutannevam Sutannevam Kamsachanura Kamsachanura Mardanam Mardanam Devaki Devaki Paramanandam Paramanandam Krishnam Krishnam Vanne Vanne Jagatgurum Jagatgurum Om together. Ata Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ata Srimad Bhagavad Gita Dvitiyadhyaya Dvitiyadhyaya Sanjaya Uvacha Sanjaya Uvacha Tantata Kripaya Vishtam Tantata Kripaya Vishtam Ashrupurna Kurikshanam Ashrupurna Kurikshanam Vishirantamidam Vakyam Vishirantamidam Vakyam Uvacha Madhusudana Uvacha Madhusudana Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Kutastva kashmalamiram Kutastva kashmalamiram Vishami samupastitam Vishami samupastitam Anaryajushtamasvargyam Anaryajushtamasvargyam Akirtikaram-arjuna Akirtikaram-arjuna Klebyam asma Gamaf-parta Naitattvayupapadyate Kshudram hridaya-daurabalyam Tyaktva-tishtha parantapa Arjuna uvacha Katham bhishmamahan sankhye Dronan shamadusudana Isho bifratiotsiami Pujara-varisudana Guruna hatvahi mahanubavan Shreyo bhoktum vaikshamapiha loke Hatvartakamamstu guruni haiva Bunjiya pogan rudira-pradigdhan Nachaitadvidmah kataranno gariyo Yadvajayima yarivano jayeyuhu Yani vatvana jijivishama Devastitav pramukhe dartarashtra Kaipanyadoshopahataspabhava Pritchami tvam dharma sammurachetam Yatsheyasyan nishchitam bruetan me Shishyasteham shatimam tvam prapannam Nahi prapashyami mamapanudiyat Yachokamutshoshanamindriyanam Avapya bhuma vasapatnamriddham Rajam suranam apicaripatyam Sanjaya uvacha Evam uktva rishikesham. Evam uktva rishikesham. Gurakeshav parantapa. Gurakeshav parantapa. Nayotsya iti govindam. Nayotsya iti govindam. Uktva tushnim abhuva. Uktva tushnim abhuva. Tamu acharishikeshaha. Tamu acharishikeshaha. Prasanneva bharata. Prasanneva bharata. Senayorupayor matye. Senayorupayor matye. Avishirantam miram vacha. Avishirantam miram vacha. Okay. Good evening, everyone. So, did we actually do verse 9 and 10 at the end last week? No, we didn't. We got to 8. Yeah. Okay, so in these first 8 verses, what did we see last week? Arjuna's there. Krishna's with him. Krishna Madhusudana. What did we say? Who is Madhusudana as a name of Krishna? Madhusudana is the one that knows how to
overcome the sweet stillness.
So Madhusudana is the name. Madhu was the name of a terrible demon who had been tyrannizing and despoting and all that. Nobody could defeat him. Krishna effortlessly defeats Madhu. But we said Madhu also means sweet, also means honey. So sometimes patterns which are limiting, they started off by being so sweet and enticing, yes? And sometimes they were the perfect thing for us at that stage or situation in life. But then it became a samskara. It was so sweet, we repeated it many times. And then it got its own very powerful tamoguna, its own very powerful inertia. And so it can be difficult to overcome something that was so sweet when it first entered our field. Its initial impression in that cycle of desire, action, impression was a very strong one, very sweet one, very comforting one. And so it became stronger. Krishna, Madhusudana, is the one who knows how to overcome even that type of difficulty that's very deeply entrenched. Yes, Tom?
So you can see these as kind of sub-personalities that emerge at different times in our development to help us, but then they kind of go their own way and need kind of a realigning with our higher purpose.
Certainly, yeah. So anything can become a samskara. So the idea, we mentioned the gunas last week, yeah. Everything that exists has sattva, has a quality of its existing in its pure essential state. Also has a quality of rajas, which means it's moving, it's changing, it's dynamic. All of nature is moving, changing, dynamic. However, even though everything that exists is always moving and changing, everything that exists, once it's come into existence, also has tamas. It has a certain inertia. So the first step is half the journey. Once something has begun, it's already kind of got some traction, some momentum. So sometimes certain habits can serve us very well for long periods of time, and those are the ones that can tend to perhaps be most troubling. Now these can become fully developed like a sub-personality, or they can just be, let's say, go-to patterns that we revert to in certain types of situation. So the idea is, in yoga, let us develop the habit of examining our habits, yeah, as best as we can. Is that easy? No, that's why the teaching's set on the battlefield. This is all coming around verse in the 40s of this chapter. How tenacious the ways of getting enmeshed and distracted can be. However, That does not mean we cannot unenmesh ourselves. Yeah. So Krishna, Madhusudana, he knows how to deal with these things that have become quite strongly established in our field. So he also said, so Arjuna's full of tears, he collapses, and the tears very significant. They're washing clean his grip on things. He's creating space. Then what did Krishna say? What was the first thing he said? Kutaha. Well, the very first word is why. What are you doing on the ground? Then he said, Uttishta, get up, Arjuna. This meager faint-heartedness doesn't suit you. Not a good look for you, Arjuna. Throw it off. Rise up like the great hero you really are. You know how to scorch your enemies. You've done it many times before. This challenge may look particularly forbidding, but cowering on the ground isn't going to do you any good here or afterwards. You're playing the lose-lose game. Rise up and start playing the win-win game, Arjuna. Yes? And then what does Arjuna say? Yeah, but Krishna, katam. So Krishna says, kutaha, why? And then Arjuna says, how? How can I possibly? What does he say? Bhishmam, Dronancha. Who are they? His teachers. How can I possibly fight against my beloved teachers with the very weapons and techniques they taught me to use on the battlefield? If I were to live as a beggar, it would be better than doing that. Because if I fight against them, even if they're not practicing what they preached, even if they are not embodying the ways of Dharma they taught me, even if they've chosen the easy path that will look after their own short-term interests, if I kill them, everything I do hereafter will be stained with their blood. And Krishna, we don't know who will win. But this we do know. If I kill my cousins, I won't want to live. And whatever happens in this world can be disaster. All the people I hold dearest will be destroyed. How can I fight? Do we feel some sympathy with Arjuna's line of reasoning here? Does it sound rather reasonable at first glance? Yes. Do you think Krishna will think it's reasonable? No, he will bring another insight. But we see Arjuna, we sympathize with him. But who do we say, who do these gurus and family members really represent? Who is it that he doesn't really want to fight against? Given that the Kauravas and the Pandavas all exist here and grew up together in the same field and are of similar age.
The sweet habits that he developed over his lifetime?
Yes. The gurus are those things that at one time were helping him grow, were helping him develop, helping him become more of his true self. But sometimes those very techniques, those very patterns that at one stage of life helped us, there comes a moment we have to say farewell, enough, yeah? If the technique is a raft to carry us across the ocean, when we get to dry land and there's a big mountain range ahead, what do we do with the raft? Now, what happens if we try to do that? We don't make it up the mountain. So we have to say thank you to the raft and leave it behind. Perhaps we will even burn the raft to put it to a use, yeah? So we'll burn it to its ashes and we will take with us that part of it which cannot be destroyed. And this is the idea of when a technique has served its purpose. This is why Shiva wears ash. The remainder is the thing that counts. Yes? Remember in the Upanishads we said Upanish. It comes from that which remains. We want to get to the essence of things. So as you are going along, many techniques, many teachings, many supporters of all types and forms may be very, very useful for you. But if the practice works, if the technique works, it will make itself obsolete. This I'm going to rejoice in shouting at the people on Saturday in the teacher training. Get ready to burn your technique. If you're getting attached to it now, you need to know, do not fall into that trap. Yes? So every technique is designed to be left behind in yoga. So you can dwell in the depth of presence it was always intended to help you cultivate. So we practice techniques for the sake of the rest of the day. We practice techniques for the sake of practice, which is life. Yes, Patricia?
Yeah. So is it always referring to habits that you have identified in a way? What about the habits that maybe are still in the subconscious, because maybe you have meditated?
For sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Those ones too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how do you identify them if are in the subconscious, and how do you heal them?
This is what techniques are for.
Yeah.
So the technique brings the light of centered awareness, as best as we can, into the parts of ourselves that previously we may have been blind to. As we keep exploring, we keep cleaning, and just as when you clean the house, as you go, you notice new layers of dirt. Yes? Similarly, as we practice, as we work with technique, the technique in yoga brings us into a medi-state, the best medi-state we can invite. In that centered state, the system, as far as we can manage, comes into a state of harmony, balance, integration, steadiness. In that state of harmony, balance, integration, steadiness, all parts of the system can just say, ah, there's a settling. And in that peacefulness, it's like the awareness can penetrate through to a deeper level. One way that they describe in the tradition, it's like when you cultivate the medi-state, when you practice a technique, it brings to the surface level of your awareness a deeper calm. So ordinarily, if we rig ourselves up to the brainwave reading machine, we'll see all sorts of activity here and there. It's not particularly congruent, it's not particularly balanced. When they've done this, when you recite chapter 2 of the Gita, when you recite Sanskrit verses, it creates a state of relatively even and beautifully balanced illumination of the two hemispheres of the brain, similar to what you see when people go into deep meditation. In that state, where things are more evenly fired up and illumined, everything can relax because everything is mutually supported to some greater degree than is our, let's say, habitual norm. In that greater degree of medi-state, of meditation, of evenness, of balance, then it's like the surface layer of our awareness becomes much clearer. And so we can see deeper into that which lies beneath. Just like if you go to a lake. We have a famous lake not so far away. So we go to the Bonnie Banks, yes. Typically, if you go to the Bonnie Banks, how will the surface of the water be? I went to Oban yesterday, gorgeous day, absolutely gorgeous day. But even though it was gorgeously sunny, enough to get a little bit suntanned, I didn't shed many layers because what was there playing on the water? There was a wind and it was rather chilly. And if you go to Loch Lomond and there's a wind playing on the water, how deep can you see? Even if the water is pristine and clean, how deep will you see with the water playing on the wind? We won't see deeply at all. But if the wind stills completely and the water becomes completely flat and the water is clean, how deep can we see?
To the bottom.
To the bottom. Except perhaps we might not see all the way to the bottom, because between the now flat surface and the bottom, what might there be? There might be some trash. Yes? And there might be an underwater cave network, yeah, that is concealing the depths. But once the surface level becomes meditated, becomes still, becomes integrated and balanced, that allows us to see more deeply than before. So the idea is, this is a classic thing that happens in yoga. Why do we come to yoga? I would say one solid answer to that begins with P and has 4 letters. And there's an N, has 2 vowels in between. Yes, Susan? Pain, yes? Something in our life afflicts us. There is something that is not quite as agreeable as we would like, and we have the idea that yoga could help. And it can. But that surface level pain that we came to yoga for was something we already knew very consciously, I want rid of that. So perhaps it's like, oh, there's some lower back pain, something in the body, or there's some tendency in your emotional behavior perhaps that it's afflicting you. Maybe at work there are some colleagues who just know how to push the button and it's affecting your work life, or at home. Like this, yeah? Maybe you lose your temper easily, for example, or you get a little bit withdrawn too easily. You think yoga could help, so you start going to yoga, and what happens? This surface level issue gets harmonized. How do you feel about yoga? Imagine this bottle is yoga. How do you feel about yoga? Great. You love it, yeah? Oh, yoga. I'm so glad I've found you. How did I ever manage without you? I will never abandon you now. Then what will happen? As the practice starts to work, we've harmonized that first surface layer of discomfort, of dis-ease, of disintegrating patterns. What happens inside the system? There is a momentary celebration as all these different aspects in the system say, Hallelujah! He's in the integration game. Fantastic! So next thing is brought up. So what often happens is as we practice, as we keep practicing, we start to meet patterns we didn't know had so much grip over us or influence within us. And step by step, it deepens. So sometimes people talk about yoga as transcending, but it's also about diving deeper and deeper. So the deeper the roots, the stronger the tree can grow. So when we come to the center, we use that centeredness to support us as we penetrate deeper into the dark shadowlands of our unknown subconscious or psyche. So all of the patterns, known, familiar, unknown, mysterious, all of them. Does that answer the question? Yeah? So, we had Arjuna protesting, how can I fight against myself, against the things I identify with? You know, Arjuna identifies with his prowess as a warrior that he learned from Bhishma and Drona. Arjuna identifies with his being a good member of the community and the family. But now, if he wants to do what his gurus taught him, if he wants to really do the best for this whole society, he has to do something that he's never imagined before. In other words, he has to go beyond the known realm that the mind's previously witnessed. He has to go, you might say, into the dark. Krishna means literally dark.
Literally? Krishna means?
Literally it means dark. So as a noun it means black, or an adjective dark, and as a verb to attract towards, to draw towards. So in his dilemma, Arjuna is drawn towards that teaching that might come from the unknown, that might arise from inside. So having explained why he feels it's so difficult to face his loved ones, to actually confront those patterns that really he is so identified with, then something very significant happened, yes? In verses 7 and 8. What did we say is so significant about 7 and 8? What are the prerequisites for yoga practice? What are the qualifications? If you apply for yoga practice, Judy, a new student came when I arrived. Judy didn't ask her these questions. She just let her go straight in. But because she was late. But if she got here early, what questions might Judy have asked? What are the prerequisites? Well, one, the lady who arrived, she showed it by arriving. First qualification for yoga is to be born. Yeah? To be born. Yeah? Yeah? So this is an important idea. In that verse we sang at the beginning, Sudhir Bhoktaha Duktan Gitamritam Mahatu. The great nectar of the Bhagavad Gita is for anybody who is interested in it. Doesn't matter if you're born in India. Doesn't matter if you're born to a Brahmin family. Doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. Doesn't matter about any of that. All that matters is that your mindset is open to receive these teachings. And the idea is as soon as you're born, you're initiated into the path of practice. Because what has just happened when you got born? You just went from the archetypal comfort zone into the vast unknown. Yeah? The womb is about as familiar comfort zone as you ever get. You've been there for the whole journey so far. It's all you've ever known. And how is it? How is the womb? Warm and comfortable. All immediate needs met, yes? Plenty of food supply whenever you want it. Steady temperature. Nice music. And it's all you've ever known. And even though it's all you've ever known, you start to feel there must be something more than this. And then something urges you to do this truly heroic thing, to force yourself into a place of greater constriction, a place where you really feel under pressure, and then burst forth into something vaster. So as soon as you're born, you're initiated into the path of yogic warriorhood. But the second qualification is
ask for help.
Why would you ask for help?
Because you're confused.
Well, so often people are confused, but they don't ask for help. Yeah?
You don't know.
It feels good to know that we don't know. Yeah? So say again, Anna.
To admit that you don't know.
To know that we don't know, to acknowledge that I don't know. So Arjuna here in verses 7 and 8, he owns that he doesn't know. And he says, I have been struck by this fault of weakness. And please, Krishna, tell me what would be for the greatest good, what would be for the good of the whole. So many things are happening in these beautiful verses. He's saying, I don't know. He asks Krishna directly for help. Shishyaste ham shadimam tvam prapannam. I am your student, give me your shelter. So in other words, he is bowing down to Krishna. He is making himself completely open and available. He's making himself into, remember that Sanskrit word? Into a patra, yeah? Into a vessel that is empty and ready to receive. And then he asks, please Krishna, tell me that one clear way with which I can do what is shreyaha, what is for the greatest good. I cannot see what could possibly take away this sorrow that is drying up my senses. Even if I were to receive lordship, not just of the earth, but of the heavens, that wouldn't count for anything. So we see Arjuna is not interested in the name or the fame or the glory or anything like that. He wants shreyaha. He wants to do what's going to be for the good of the whole. So in these verses we get underlined the purity of Arjuna's intent, the fact that he knows that he doesn't know, his willingness to receive, and let's say the purity of his motivation. So now the teaching can unfold. Arjuna he stated his case, why he's feeling it's so difficult, but even though he feels it's very difficult, he's open to see a way that he might never have imagined before. And he says, I do not know. And in saying, I do not know, what is he doing? He's basically loosening his grip on expectation that things have to be a particular way. So rather than being backed into a corner in which you can only see one way or another way, he's opening to a vast field of possibilities that he might not previously have entertained. Yeah? So that's kind of a quick recap of what we did last week, yeah? Yeah? So, Arjuna's stated his case, and then we're going to look at these two linking verses. Let's just recite them one more time together. Sanjaya Uvacha
Sanjaya Uvacha
Evam uktva rishikesham Gurakeshav parantapa Nayotsya iti govindam Uktva tushnim abuha Tamuacha rishikeshah Prasanyava bharata Senayorupayor madhye Rishirantam miram vacha So, Evam Uktva, having said this, Rishikesham, to Krishna, who is, let's say, the master of the sense powers. Gurakeshaha, Arjuna, the one who has mastered sleep. Parantapa is just the name of the king who Sanjay is speaking to, so he's just addressing him. So he says, hey king. Arjuna, having said this to Krishna, then said, Nayotsya. Say that. Nayotsya. Now did you notice there was that caesura, that pause in the line? Yeah? Nayotsya iti govindam uktva tushnim abhuvahan. So Nayotsya means, I will not fight. So Arjuna says, I will not fight, but then what do we have in the line? There is this pause. Iti Govindam, having said this to Govinda, to Krishna, to the one that can gather, that can bring everything together, that can protect all the different parts. Tushnim babuvaha. Tush. Can you guess what tush means?
Silence.
Yes. So Arjuna says, I will not fight, but then the poetry gives us this pause. Like this moment of stillness in the middle of the line. It's the most overt pause in the whole poem so far. Nayotsya iti govindam uktva tushnim. Having said this, he became silent. So Arjuna says, I will not fight, but then he becomes silent. And this is so telling and so significant. Because what does it basically tell us?
He's waiting for the teaching. He's waiting for the teaching.
He's making himself ready to receive. And, like, okay, I'm not fighting. Yeah? He's not walking away. He's becoming silent. So it's not, I will not fight, and then he scampered off home. No. Then he became silent. He's not going to fight against himself by careening into action when he doesn't know what to do. Have you ever fought against yourself by careering into action when you don't know what to do? Yes. So this is what Arjuna does not do. Have you ever acted when you feel your conscience is nothing's right, I'm torn? How does it work out? Like that, betray your conscience and you're damned. Yeah, like if we're in that place, we haven't really got clear, is this my conscience or is this my tricky mind masquerading as the conscience? And I don't know what to do, and then I go running into action, and then what happens later? That's a lose-lose situation. If the conscience isn't clear, it's unlikely that we're going to have a peaceful outcome. So very significantly here, Arjuna says, I will not fight, but then he stops and he becomes silent. And in that stillness, who speaks to him? Krishna speaks to him. Tamuvacha Rishikesha prahasan iva Bharata. So Bharata, again, Sanjaya the narrator is addressing his king, and Krishna, Rishikesha, master of the senses, we'll come back to the names in a moment, prahasan iva. Do you know what has means in Sanskrit? Ha ha! That's a clue. Has means laughter, yes. Yeah? Has is laughter or mirth. Prasan means like smilingly. So here's Arjuna on the floor, completely overwhelmed, sobbing, hair standing on end, and Krishna smilingly begins to teach. Where? Senayoho ubayoho madhye. Do you know what madhya means? In the madhye is the locative, it means in the center, in the middle. So senayoho ubayoho madhye, in between the two sets of armies on the battlefield. Vishirantam iram vachaha. Krishna said this. So where did he say it? Where does yoga happen? In the middle, in the thick of life. You don't need to wait for yoga. Yoga happens right here in the thick of it. Welcome, Michael. And what's your name? Anna, welcome. So, to the one who has said, I will not fight, but then who stops and becomes silent, smilingly, Krishna, Rishikesha, begins to speak. Now the name Rishikesha and Gudakesha, which we had in the previous verse, Rishikesha, there are some translations which talk about the hair of Arjuna and Krishna, like they both have this beautiful long hair. That is not inaccurate. However, Rishikesha and Gudakesha can also mean the one that is the master, Rishikesha, of the sense powers, of the Indriyaha, and Gudakesha, the one that has mastered sleep. So Arjuna, the one who has mastered sleep, turns to Krishna, master of the senses, and says, I will not fight. What might that be about?
And when Gudakesha is describing Arjuna as like that he's overcome sleep, master of sleep, is that any reference to becoming lucid in your dreams and being able to take your consciousness to a sort of deeper level of awareness?
Certainly. So there's lots of things going on with this name. So one of them is this idea, like as we practice, there's the idea that the yogin, as we bring our awareness from gross to subtle, is able to maintain awareness in the dream state and the sleep state. So for example, sometimes people say, oh, I had a kundalini arising, or something like this. Yeah? My teacher's teacher said, if you want to experience the rising of kundalini, then the basic prerequisite is to maintain the awareness of the gap between the breath for 48 hours unbroken through waking, dreaming and sleeping. The idea is that the yogin, when they're asleep, they are awake. Krishna will talk about this towards the end of this chapter. As that you go through these states of awareness, but you don't lose awareness in the way that the average human being does. Now Arjuna as well, who is Arjuna? In the setting of the Mahabharata, he's the great archer, and in the Pandava army, he is perhaps the greatest warrior. Now, apparently, Napoleon also had this thing. He would be on campaign, and he could just sleep whenever he wanted to, and he could manage without sleep in a way that was very unusual. So I have a friend, my friend Bill, who was a Marine captain in Vietnam, and he says that some of his colleagues also, they got to this place where their relationship with sleep became very different from the normal person. But Arjuna, he's been campaigning for a long, long time. He's been a warrior for a long, long time. What did we say the warrior signifies? Yes, Fiona, say.
It's the same like when you're born, you're fighting all your life.
So the warrior is known in Sanskrit by its several very illustrative and revelatory names. Arjuna, as a Pandava, he is a Kshatriya. Say Kshatriya. Where is the Gita said? Dharma Kshetre, Kurukshetre. Kshetra means field. Kshetra, Kshatriya. You can hear a connection, yeah? Kshatriya is basically the guardian of the field. The one that looks after the well-being of the field of experience. So all of us are warriors. Sometimes people, when they read a translation, think, well, Krishna is addressing Arjuna as a warrior. I'm not a warrior. I deliver them post. I'm a nurse. I'm a cook. Whatever. As long as you're a human being, you have to be a kshatriya, because your field is your responsibility. And what is the great quality of the yogic warrior?
360 vision.
Say it louder, louder.
360 vision.
360-degree global equivision. Let's say it together. 360-degree global equivision. So this is the hallmark of the yogic warrior. Who does the warrior serve? The sovereign, yes. Yeah, so Krishna's going to tell you, you have to be the sovereign of your kingdom. Your life is your responsibility. Your kingdom, your field is your responsibility. So 360-degree vigilance and steady alertness of the yogic warrior, that brings that meditative, clear, sustained awareness into all parts of the field, serves the sovereign to maintain the well-being of the whole field. Yeah? Now the idea is, when we go on a campaign and we start to look deeply into ourselves, we'll start to fathom some of the mystery of ourselves. Now sleep is already a pretty big mystery. So the idea is Arjuna, he's a very advanced student, relatively speaking. But this is one of the other significant things about the setting. It doesn't matter if you're a beginner or you're very advanced. To practice, you've got to still be a beginner. To practice, you've got to still be a student. And even if you've been practicing for decades and you've been through these cycles of finding yourself torn, confused, feeling overwhelmed as you penetrate deeper into your blind spots or your shadows, this pattern will repeat many times. So even for the very advanced and, let's say, highly experienced practitioner or student or warrior, these times of trouble, these times of having to face things in a new, deeper way, they will come again and again and again. Krishna, Hrishikeshaha, he has mastered his senses. In other words, what does this mean? He is qualified to guide even the advanced student, like Arjuna. The one who has mastered the sense powers is a yogin. I think you have the tattva sheet, yeah? Do you have the tattva sheet? Yes, that one. So the idea is, can I just borrow that a moment? So the indriyaha, the yogin masters all of these aspects of him or herself. And so Krishna, Hrishikeshaha, is thus qualified. Does that make sense? So we have the student who has already demonstrated through the attitude he has expressed, his sincerity, his openness, and his owning that he doesn't know. So we've got the perfectly qualified student. And in the names here, we've had Madhusudana already, and now we have Hrishikesha reminding us, Krishna knows. And Prahasan, how is he delivering his teaching?
With a smile.
With a smile. Is this significant? Yes, of course it's significant. Every syllable is significant, but what's so significant about Prahasannava?
Don't take yourself too seriously.
Certainly, when you bring lightness to your dilemma, it's much easier to see it in a new light. We said last week and over the weekend, remember, your problem is smaller than you are, because you can look at it within your awareness. And when you can look at it within your awareness, and then you see, oh, I was getting so down, I was letting it press me down, but actually it's smaller than me, you can laugh at yourself. Yes? Also, when do you learn most quickly?
When you're relaxed.
When you're relaxed and having fun and open. When we're in the sympathetic nervous system, growth cannot occur. The teacher that sets you at your ease can accelerate your learning. The same thing that sets one person at their ease might frighten to death another. Yes? So, prasannivabharata, this is laying down, you need to be gentle with yourself. You need to, this is like the teacher. Is anybody here a school teacher? Okay, I used to be a school teacher and then I taught in university, and in both situations I had colleagues who took against a student because they acted in a way they did not like at a certain stage in their student career. And it would always exasperate me because it's their job to make mistakes. They're students. They have to push the boundaries because that's what school's for. It's a safe environment to do that. Obviously there are limits to this, but some of the things that some of my colleagues took against a student for I found really saddening. So, on the other hand, there are other teachers, and I was lucky enough to have some teachers like this. If the kids are getting a little bit, they kind of smilingly let them push the boundaries a little bit because they can see learning is happening. Yeah? So it's that type of, Krishna's an encouraging teacher. Krishna's whole style, as we will see as he gets into his delivery, he's the absolute master psychologist. Last week I spoke a little bit about my horror of people saying we've only had the scientific method for a few hundred years. Same, people say, oh, psychology was only invented in the last, you know? There's plenty of evidence that psychology goes back millennia, and Krishna is an absolute master pedagogue. Never does well, that's not true. Krishna does sometimes tell very clearly what to do, but he always empowers, he always invites the student to come to their own recognition. Patanjali does this in an absolutely staggeringly beautiful way in the Yoga Sutra. It's always an invitation, it's always an empowerment. In Patanjali there are no prohibitions, there's no don'ts, it's always do. It's an invitation. So prasanniva, in an invitational way, with a warm, smiling, generous host way. This is how Krishna teaches, because he's a real master. And the real master, how is Yoda? When Luke is flipping out in The Empire Strikes Back, when he's encountering his anger on the swamplands, how is Yoda? He is serene and Yoda-like. And what does Yoda mean? Remember? Yoda is a Sanskrit word which means? It means Hrishikesha. It means yogic warrior. Yogic warrior, the one who has 360-degree global equivation, 360-degree global equivision, and who has mastered his sense powers and integrated his field. So just like Yoda is a great teacher in the Star Wars Purana, similarly in this Purana, Krishna is serene. Not only is he serene, he's happy. He's happy to be teaching. And the idea is nature will rejoice when you pay attention to her teaching. Have you heard this idea that we're now living in Kali Yuga? It's the dark age, yes? They say within the Yoga tradition, this is a great time to be alive. Because most people are not interested in ultimate reality and realizing themselves. So just a little bit of effort in that direction, nature will rejoice. But there's that when we turn to conscience, when we do something, we mentioned already, if we fly into action when we feel torn, how does it work out? We always burn a little bit somehow, or a lot. If, however, we make a sincere effort to attune to conscience and we listen to it, what happens? Oh, we get some feedback from the universe. It feels good, yeah? It's self-validating. Yeah? So this is Prasan Krishna. Shall we continue? So smilingly, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Now Krishna, Shri Bhagavan, is going to speak. So, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Ashochanan Vashochastvam. Ashochanan Vashochastvam. Prajnavadanscha Bhashasi. Prajnavadanscha Bhashasi. Gatasuna Gatasunscha. Gatasuna Gatasunscha. Nanushochante Pandita. Nanushochante Pandita. Natvivanjatunasam. Natvivanjatunasam. Natvannimi janaripa. Natvannimi janaripa. Nachaiva nabhavishyamaha. Nachaiva nabhavishyamaha. Sarve vayamatah param. Sarve vayamatah param. Dehinosmin yata dehi. Dehinosmin yata dehi. Kaumaranyo vananjana. Kaumaranyo vananjana. Tatadihantara praptir. Tatadihantara praptir. Dhirastatra namuhyati. Dhirastatra namuhyati. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. So Krishna is introduced as the one who teaches as Shri Bhagavan. What does that mean? Shri.
It's like an elevated address, like sir, like, you know, someone just really revered.
Yeah, and Shri is the name of the goddess. So Shri is, you could say, glory incarnate or glory in manifest form. So Shri is a name for the goddess. The Bhagavad Gita is sometimes considered a goddess in an incarnate form, in the form of this teaching or this text or this poem. Shri Bhagavan, Krishna is, a male archetype, but having Shri Bhagavan, he is an archetype that represents totality. So the feminine and the masculine are integrated. Bhagavan is a very beautiful word, because what Bhagavan means having Bhaga. And Bhaga means basically indivisibility, unlimitedness. It means the one that is not limited by what it can do, what it can know, what it can accomplish. It doesn't need any external instruments. It's completely independent in the sense that it's its own Shakti. So this is the teacher. Krishna teaches from totality. And what does he say? Ashochan vashochastvam pragyavadanscha bhashasi gatasuna gatasunscha na anashochan dipanditaha. Do you recognize any of the words here? The last word of the verse, Pandit. What is a Pandit?
Someone that knows what they're talking about.
So Pandit is one of those Sanskrit words that's come into English. Like, I don't know, is there a Champions League football match on tonight? There might be. If it's on TV, as well as the 90 minutes of play, there'll also be, endless punditry. Okay. Yes? But Pandit in the Sanskrit literally means one that understands totality. It's the idea that if you study a shastra, a body of knowledge, to its core, to its depth, you go into it so deeply that you will reach through to its links to other shastras and other fields of knowledge, and it will be like a raft that can take you to the essence of something. And this is the idea in the Indian tradition. If you study any art or craft, it can take you to the state of yoga. And so you don't need to do any particular technique to practice yoga. Any discipline that invites you to come to know yourself more and more deeply and to know reality more and more deeply can be used as a yoga technique. So some people, all the greatest yogis I've ever met, don't do any, and that's not quite true, but I've met many great yogis, or people who I think are approximating a yogin, who don't do any yoga techniques. But they live their vocation and their dedication to their particular way of life that usually involves some type of vocation, their work or what they do within their family or community is something that is constantly inquiring, they're constantly learning, and they are diving deep into the relationship with nature and themselves. So a pundit is somebody who has travelled that path and has some deep wisdom of the whole field, let's say, not just the football field. Yeah? So pandita. So Krishna says we have this ashochan, anu ashocha. So shoka means grief or sorrow. Krishna says here, bhashase pragyavada. You are speaking, as it were, words of wisdom. Your protest, Arjuna, you're making out like you're speaking like a wise pundit. However, na anushochanti pandita. The wise, the learned, those of real insight, the pundits, they mourn neither for gatasun or agatasun. Those who have gone or those who have yet to go. So he says, Arjuna, you're making this nice argument about how can I fight against the people. You're making out like you're speaking a nice, wise, sound argument. But Arjuna, a wise person mourns neither those who have gone or those who have yet to go. How else could we render that in English? A wise person does not mourn those who have gone, gatasun, or agatasun, or those who have yet to go. That's another way of saying that.
Living or the dead.
The living or the dead. The wise ones mourn neither the living or the dead. Now there's many, many ways you could say the living or the dead in Sanskrit. But here, gatasun agatasun's cha. Those who have gone or those who have yet to go. So what is being emphasized by this particular word choice?
Going.
Yeah, who's going?
Everyone.
Everyone. Yeah? Everybody's going. In other words, going is inevitable. Yes? And does a wise person get upset about something that's inevitable? Not if they're truly a pundit, says Krishna. A really wise person doesn't get upset about the inevitable. From the yogic point of view, allowing yourself to get overwhelmed by something that is inevitable is a poor choice. Notice how Krishna is empowering Arjuna to come to his own recognition of this fact. He says, the wise mourn neither those who have gone nor those who have yet to go. So he's inviting Arjuna to make the connection. Oh yes, I am going. And if I spend my life lamenting the fact that I'm going, what do I do with my life? I make it a lament. I miss it. And so Krishna says, everything's going. So there's no point getting upset about it. If you get upset about it, you'll just miss it. Instead, what do you have to do? Get on with it within the reality that you are living in. So the wise mourn neither for those who have gone or those who have yet to go. In other words, don't get upset about the inevitable. If you realize that you're upset about something that is inevitable, what then do we need to do? What was the first thing Krishna said to Arjuna? Get up, stand up, look at the situation afresh and see there's no cause to get overwhelmed, there's no reason to be full of sorrow. If you feel some sorrow at some time, that's quite normal, but don't let yourself be overwhelmed by it. You can see deeper than that, Arjuna. You've made this very wise sounding argument. You are a potential pundit, you're a potential rishi. See a bit deeper, see a bit clearly, see a bit more clearly. Also, there's the idea as well and Krishna is going to get into this more in the coming verses, the wise, the truly wise, why would they not get upset?
Except they can't change.
Because they might accept, but also if they've really penetrated through to the essence of existence, why might they not get upset? Because they're no longer so identified with the coming and going, and then this is what Krishna starts to get into now. This is why you don't need to be upset. And this is a beautiful thing. When Krishna gives like an instruction, so basically the instruction encoded in the 11th verse is don't mourn the inevitable. Don't make poor choices of how you face inevitable things in life. And now he's going to give us a good reason not to. In the 12th, Natu eva aham jatu, na asam, na tvam, na ime janadipaha. There's never been a time where you or I or any of these rulers of men has not existed. Nor will there ever be a time where I or you or any of these rulers of men will not exist hereafter. What is he saying? Your essence is immortal. Nobody can take that away. The wise, they recognize the deathless essence, and so they're no longer so overwhelmed by the coming and going of material reality or of nature.
I suppose within the context of how it's related to our being, you know, he's talking about the human condition and all the attachments that are there as part of that, always they come with it, you know, it's like everything comes with it.
Yeah. So to feel that tinge of sorrow, that's completely normal. But don't let yourself be overwhelmed by it. Remember the deeper essence. So basically Krishna's already starting to say, at the ultimate level, everything is one, and everything is part of this that is never destroyed. So, I've never not existed, you never not existed, all of these people have never not existed. Then, 13th verse, Dehinaha asmin yatha dehi kaumaranyavananjara tata deha antar praptihi diraha tatra namuhyati. So here Krishna says, the embodied soul that exists in this body, when it's embodied, the body goes through different stages. And the soul experiences these through the body. Kaumara, Yauvana, Jara. Those words at the end of the first line, do they remind you of any words? Kaumara, Yauvana. Does anybody know, who's been to India? Did you meet a man called Kumar? More than one. Kumar means prince, but one of its meanings is child. So Kaumara means childhood. Yauvana, what's that sound a bit like in English? Yauv. The youth, yeah? The youth. And Jara. Geriatric, yeah? So, Dehinaha, the one that dwells in the body, when it's in a body, that body moves through childhood, youth, and old age. And when this body comes to its end, then praptihi, then it takes another one. The soul moves into another body. Dhiraha, somebody who is of steady awareness. This does not perturb them. This does not upset them. A wise, steady one isn't confused or overwhelmed or disturbed by this fact of life. When you're in a body, you move through these stages. Is this true? We're already experiencing it, yeah? And Krishna says, just as we, within this realm of awareness, accept that we move through childhood, youth, and older stages of life, similarly, the pundit recognizes the soul moves through different bodily stages. Each one with its own gifts and opportunities. So I think a teaching that's kind of slightly is there, bubbling under the surface in that verse, Kaumara Yauvana Jara. The idea is, every moment counts, you know? Every moment's a wealth of opportunity. The embodied soul, we'll get into this a bit more, but there's the idea, we've said this before, what is a body without a soul? And a body without a soul, what do you do at the end of the practice? When you do the Ashtanga practice? Shava. The body without the soul is a corpse. But a soul without a body is stuck. So every moment of life is this glorious opportunity to become less stuck, to learn more of who you really are. So you become less identified with these things that come and go, and more attuned to your deathless essence. Now, 14 and 15 could be said, this is the very heart of the whole teaching. This is kind of the essence of what Krishna is going to emphasize. There are other verses that you might say that about, but certainly I think these verses are really kind of giving us a distillation of some of the main thrusts of what Krishna is going to go on to say. So we'll recite 14 and 15 together. Call and response. Matra sparshastu kaunteya, Matra sparshastu kaunteya, Shitoshna sukha dukkada, Shitoshna sukha dukkada, Agama payino nitya, Agama payino nitya, Tam stitikshasva bharata, Tam stitikshasva bharata, Yamina vyatayantyete, Yamina vyatayantyete, Purusham purushashava, Purusham purushashava, Samadukhka sukham dhiram, Somritatvaya kalpate, Somritatvaya kalpate, Nasato vidyate bhavo, Nasato vidyate bhavo, Na bhavo vidyate satah, Na bhavo vidyate satah, Ubayorapi drishtontas, Ubayorapi drishtontas, Tvanayos tattvadarshibhihi, Tvanayos tattvadarshibhihi. So the 14th verse. Here we have two names that Krishna addresses Arjuna by. First line, Kaunteya. Say Kaunteya. Kaunteya. And in the second line, Bharata. Bharata. So Kaunteya means son of Kunti. So in other words, you who are the son of your mother, you who are the child of a woman, you who have come out of a womb. In other words, you who are a human being. So whenever we get these, also what he calls him Partha, another name of his mother is Pritha. So son of Pritha, Partha, son of Kunti, Kaunteya. So he's emphasizing he who came out of a womb, you who've come from the same place as we all have, you who are a human being. And then Bharata, what's Bharata?
India, isn't it?
Yeah, so Bharata is a name for the land of India. But like what we now call India was called Bharatavarsha back then. So Bharata means you who are a child of this land. So it's so beautiful. You are the you are the child of a mother. You've come out of your mother's womb. And you who are a child of this earth, of this land. When you are human, when you are the child of a parent, when you come out of your mother's womb, when you're a child of nature, when you're made of the elements, when you exist within this realm of the tattvas, on this field of Dharmakshetra, Kurukshetra, matra sparshaha, the contact of your sense powers with their objects will give rise, shitoshna sukha dukkadaha, Daha, it will give rise to, it will bring what? Shita, cold, Ushna, Sukha, easeful, pleasurable, agreeable, and Dukkha, difficult, yeah? Sukham, Dukkham literally means good vibration in space and not so pleasant vibration. So, and Sukha, Dukkha, and Shita, Ushna, it doesn't just mean hot, cold, pleasure, pain, ease and not so easeful. What does it mean? All the pairs of opposites, all these things that come and go. When we're a human being and we have experiences, when our senses come into contact with things, sometimes it's pairs of opposites. It's hot, it's cold, it's nice, not so nice, yeah? Is this true? Can we avoid this? No. This is just what it's like to be incarnate as a human being. However, what do we know about these things that come and go?
They have a beginning and an end.
Yeah, they come and go. Agama, Agama, they come. Apayinaha, and they fleet away. Anitya, they are not eternal, they do not last forever. Tam, these things that come and go. Titikshasva, Bharata, you who are a child of nature, Titikshasva, this is the imperative verb form in the second person singular of the verb star, which is the verb to stand steady, which gives you samastiti, for example, or stira sukhamasana in nominal forms. So Titikshasva, be steady. And this is basically the foundation teaching in yoga. Stand steady in the middle. Come to the medi state as best you can. In the middle of the coming and going of the world, can you stay steady? Can you come to live in the hub of the wheel? This is where Shiva Nataraja lives. When you see Shiva Nataraja represented as the Lord of Yoga in dynamic form, in the middle of the wheel is the dancer's heart. This is why Yoda can feel the disturbances in the force, because he lives in the hub of the wheel. He's connected to every part, every spoke. So basic teaching, this is the foundation that Krishna is going to then build upon. He's going to elaborate. When you're in nature, you're going to experience the gunas. You're going to experience change. You're going to experience things that have inertia. You'll be subject to be influenced by your patterned behaviors and your conditionings. This is normal. However, if you can come to steadiness, from there you can access yoga. You can access the underlying unity and the underlying conscious essence which is allowing all of this different experience. So you can come to know your essence. And then the 15th he says, Yam hinavyatyanti ete purusham, the purusha, the person, the individual conscious human being, who is not made to shake by these comings and goings, who is steady amidst these comings and goings, sama, who is even, who is the same, dukkha sukham, when you're in an agreeable space, when the place is not so agreeable, dhiram, the one who is steady and wise and discerning, so is saha, that person, amritatvaya kalpate, that person reveals his or her innate fitness to savor and recognize the deathless essence, the deathless essence which is our innate capacity. Does that make sense? Yeah? So in the 14th verse, Krishna says, human being, you who have come out of a womb, you who come from unity and take birth, Bharata, in this land of the elements, in this realm of material manifest prakriti, nature, the realm of change of that which is born and which will die, and which in between those two great changes will be subject to change. When you are alive and incarnate in this realm, you will experience shitoshna sukha dukkha, you will experience hot, cold, pleasure, pain, and all the other pairs of opposites. That's just the way it is. But these things come and go, so they do not last forever, we know this. So be steady amidst them. One who can be steady amidst all of these things that change and is not shaken by them, such a person will come to know his or her essence. Such a person will recognize his or her innate fitness for immortality. Such a person will remember who he or she really is. And notice the way that Krishna addresses Arjuna in the 15th verse. He calls him Purusharshava, which literally means bull among persons. So, in the Indian context, remember that all the Upanishads are the cows. Who was the bull in India? If you're a bull among the people, you're like a great one. So he's called him, you who are human, you who are a child of land, but you who are a bull, you who are a leader, you who know how to bring all the different parts together, you who have been already making a good steadfast effort, you can do it. The name here is like giving Arjuna encouragement. You've exceeded, you've done very well in the past in difficult situations. So this is not easy. This is a great challenge to stay steady in the midst of all the coming and going of the world. Purusharshava, but you're a great person. You have great capacities. You're a Pandava. You're a human being. You're blessed with conscience. You're blessed with life force. You're blessed with these qualities that protect you, that guide you towards what is nourishing. When you harness these things and you lead them to work as a unit, then you will recognize that who you really are is this immortal essence. And it's nothing outside yourself. You are innately fit for that. You don't have to become anything you are not. Saha amritatvaya kalpate. That person becomes fit for that. That person reclaims or regains or just accesses his or her innate fitness for it. Good? Yeah? So I think that's the kind of like essence of the whole teaching. And from here, everything's going to is elaborating this. Now interestingly this next verse, we have two forms of the verb to be. The verb us, say us, and boo. And us gives us words like sat, and boo gives us words like bhava, which appear here. So we have na sato vidyate bhavaha, na abhavaha vidyate sataha, ubayoho api drishtaha antaha tu anayoho tattvadarshibhihi. Now tattvadarshibhihi, remember the tattvas. Tat meaning that which exists. Tattvadarshibhihi basically means those who see reality clearly. So Krishna says here, those who see reality clearly have come to these two conclusions. What are these two conclusions? Na asataha vidyate bhavaha and na abhavaha vidyate sataha. So in the one sentence we have asataha and bhavaha. In the other sentence we have abhavaha and sataha. Yeah? So Krishna basically says, and vidyate means seen, known. Yeah? So Krishna says, the asataha, the non-isness, the non-existence, bhavaha, of that which has become, of that which is not known. Second conclusion, the non-becoming, the no longer being of that which is not known. So Krishna basically says, once something is, it is. The non-existence of that which exists is not found. The existence of something that doesn't exist is not found. You might say, stating the obvious. You might think, why is he saying the same thing twice? Why is he saying the same thing in these two very similar ways? The reason is that Indian logic is much more thorough than Western logic. And one way you can prove something to be contentious is by negation in certain ways. So by saying it both ways, Krishna is covering that. There's the idea that the Gita is one of the texts that makes yoga into a shastra, which means a very well-formed and solid body of teaching. Now sometimes people look at this verse and say, it's just a logician's verse. So, first line, na asataha vidyate bhavaha. The emerging, the becoming, the being of that which is not found. It's not known. Na abhavaha vidyate sataha. The existence of that which has not emerged is not found. Ubayohu, both of these stances, both of these understandings have been seen, have been apprehended and understood by the Tattvadarshibhi. Those who understand reality have understood this. Does this sound like any law of physics?
Oh, the law of energy, that no energy can be created or destroyed?
Yes, so this thing is there, yeah? And also, there's something else here which I find there's another thing in the verse that I think it makes it much more than a logician's verse. Where do we live? In a realm of existence. In other words, everything is. And everything is the means. You're never outside the field of practice. You're never in the wrong place. When you are, you're experiencing. So every moment is an opportunity to learn and to grow. Wherever you are, you're in the right place to practice. Because you're never in a place that is not part of this whole conscious realm. Is that clear enough, that verse?
It feels like the first two lines have got a lot more substance to them than at first meets the eye. You know, that
yes.
You need to kind of meditate on it and reflect on it.
Definitely. So the idea is every verse in the Gita is like a meditation. So, and the difference between us and Bu. So Bu, being and becoming. Us, it's like ser in Spanish or essere in Italian. Like in Spanish you have ser and estar. In Italian they have also essere and stare. In English we just have to be. Yeah? So Italian and Spanish are close to Latin, which is close to Sanskrit. So we mentioned Sanskrit means well made, well done. The difference between, and I also said Indian logic is much more thorough than Western logic. Who here studied logic at school? Only people who didn't. You did, Alana? No. Only people who went to school outside this country. Why is our society such a mess? Because we haven't been trained in the basic epistemology that our forefathers, our ancestors realized were really important to, if you're understanding what's a good choice. In the traditional Indian education system, within the Vedic realm of things, you always start. Have you heard of the Shat Darshana, the six views on reality? So yoga has a very special place in the Indian philosophical system because yoga means that which joins or connects. Yeah? So yoga is part of the Tantric system, it's also part of the Vedic system. It's the unifier. But within the Vedic system, yoga exists as part of some other schools of philosophy. And the first pair of schools is known together as Tarka. And Tarka is composed of Nyaya and Vaisheshika. And Nyaya is logic and epistemology. Epistemology means how do we determine if something is real or not? So that's where you begin. So if you're going to investigate reality and investigate existence and the mystery of life, the first place is, well, how do we determine what's the knower, what's the known, what are the means of knowing? How do we determine if we can know something or find something out? So that's where they begin. And so you lay down this method of investigating if something is real or not. And that's step one. Once you've laid down that method that's very thorough, that then supports you to go into the realm of mystery, with some moorings, with some orientation. It like gives you a compass, if you like, to explore the unknown. So you can go into the ocean that nobody's ever been in before, but you've got a compass. You've got some solid ground. Like, well, these things I've already proved to that. Okay, for example, they said that darkness is not a substance, and there's a logical way they proved that, because a substance can move, and there's various reasons, but there's a very thorough way of looking at that argument. And so there's the idea that when you come to yoga and you start to fathom deeper aspects of reality, you are already established in this means of quite thorough inquiry. And is it not completely baffling that we do not learn this in our education system? Mm-hmm. And have you seen how much fallacy gets bombarded on people in the media, how people swallow it all whole? Perhaps there's a connection. So what Krishna's doing in this verse is he's putting everything on a very thorough foundation. So he's basically here, because there are some schools of philosophy whose speciality is negation. There are some schools of philosophy who say the only means of valid knowledge is direct perception. Yoga admits two other means of valid knowledge. Anumana, which means inference, and agama, that which has come. It's like reliable testimony. But the idea is the reliable testimony comes from somebody who had pratyaksha, direct perception. And inference comes from direct perception of something that is universally concomitant with that which you are proving. So for example, I have direct perception of the fire exists. I have direct perception of smoke, and I know that there is no smoke without fire. I have the direct perception of the smoke, I infer the fire. Yeah? So yoga admits inference as a valid means to build an understanding of reality. And it admits agama, that which has come. So yoga accepts, let's say, the teachings of rishis as being valid. There's that some people have direct perceptions that previously people didn't have, like Isaac Newton when he saw the laws of motion. So yoga accepts that when something has been very well realized by a rishi, we can work with that. Now ultimately, yoga says, to know yourself, pratyaksha is the only way. But along the journey, we can use these other means of valid knowledge. Now here, there are some people who would say that if you have not seen something yourself, then it does not exist. But there's the idea that they're called the charvakas in the Indian system of philosophy. Charvaka, it's like they chew everything. They just chew everything up and spit it out. They don't actually digest it. So if we take that point of view, say, if I haven't experienced it, then it cannot exist, well, that isn't very rational. Because as we keep exploring life, sometimes we then realize things that we didn't know existed, but then we find they do. Have you had that experience? So here what Krishna is saying is the non-existence of that which has become is not known. So he's just told him, you have no reason to fear, basically, because you've never not existed. So here he's saying, and the non-becoming, and the coming out of existence of that which is also not known. He's just said, the wise ones do not let themselves be shaken by the comings and goings. So in this verse, he's reassuring Arjuna. The comings and goings happen, but the comings and goings are the superficial overlay of something that is constant, which is your essence. Those who see through to the essence of reality know that underneath all the coming and going is an unchanging essence. And so you have no need to fear. Which is where he goes next, and it's where we will continue next week. It's already 8:30, yeah? So we're averaging 8 verses. That's quite good. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, when you said a soul without a body gets stuck,
It's stuck.
What do you mean exactly about that?
So the idea is that the soul, so this is the idea in yoga of how the body is this divine vehicle, is this precious vehicle, and that the bodily existence is an amazing gift. So I understand that's a direct quote of Shankaracharya, and he said as well, this is a loose translation, you never know when it will be time to leave, so make sure you've got your bags packed. In other words, always be practicing. Always be cultivating that wholeness. Because you never know what's going to happen. So the idea is that when we are incarnate, this is the opportunity we have been moving towards. This is what we've been moving towards. They say that, it's coming up soon, but they say that when the soul leaves one body, it's like those inchworms. It doesn't leave completely before it already knows where it's going. But that the soul needs a body to recognize itself. This is the thrill of the game of incarnate reality. The idea being that consciousness creates the manifest realm of nature for the thrill of waking up to itself, for the thrill of recognizing itself. And the bodily vehicle is the means. This is the vehicle that can take you there. Without this limited vehicle, the soul doesn't get to recognize its unlimited essence. And so that's one of the reasons why in yoga it's so practical, because it works with all these aspects of reality, and it recognizes the body does not lie. Mind, I don't know, my mind certainly has been known to. Has yours? But the body doesn't lie. The body is part of nature. Nature is the guru. Nature is always teaching us. So the gifts of the body, these are the gifts of the Pandavas. The youngest brothers, Nakula and Sahadeva, we said this is the body and senses, innate, instinctive gifts that are attributes of conscience that can lead us towards that which is nourishing, which is conducive to growth, and help us feel when we need to move away from certain things that could be harmful or get in the way of our deeper well-being. That we have these gifts, they come with this vehicle. Our task, our challenge, is to attune to this vehicle. Because every vehicle has its unique capacity. For example, does anybody here like driving large motor cars? Or know somebody who does? I know somebody who likes, my father's neighbour likes to drive a big car. Because he says, when you're on the motorway, it's just so much easier, you know. He likes driving a big car. When I lived in Bangkok, do you know what vehicle I used to like to take to go to work?
Rickshaw.
I used to like to take the bicycle. Because on the bicycle I could overtake the Ferraris. Because the traffic was so thick, I would always overtake Ferraris with glee. Yes? Because this vehicle was allowing certain types of movement that the bigger vehicle was not. Yeah? We each have a unique vehicle. Yes, the body has its own predilections. Some people call it the divine consort. It is always teaching us. And so the soul has come into this body, and this body offers the soul unique opportunities. And when we work with them, the more thoroughly we can, and we have that chance to recognize the conscious essence.
And is it also suggesting that you can't evolve when you're just a soul? So when you go back to the causal body, or in your kind of, like when you're in a lucid dream, you can still learn things, but is that kind of different?
There's the idea that when you leave the body, you need to go to another. But it's like they say, you're so lucky to be born as a human being. So if you make the most of the human birth, you don't need any more embodied, you don't need any more incarnation because you can realize yourself. But until that, the human body is the vehicle that we want. So let us use it as skillfully as we can. So I feel that the emphasis is to work with the whole spectrum of what it means to be embodied. When we can integrate the idea of microcosm and macrocosm, when we can integrate this field and bring this field into harmony, see, we don't need to go anywhere else. Everything we need, we're already equipped with. The teachings will unfold here. I mentioned, I can't remember if it was on the weekend or last week, one of my teachers, he said, read the book of your brain. Read the book of your mind. Yes, that when you do dive deep into this universe, it's all mapped out, is the idea. And that requires being steady, because in here, just like out there, what might we find as we dive deeper? Like you were saying earlier, there's all sorts of previously unknown forces and tendencies whirling in different directions. And we may, as we mentioned over the weekend, we may encounter things that we have inherited. Things that we perhaps didn't really choose so much, but that are in us from our ancestral line. And there are things to be harmonized and healed that we're not so aware of from this birth, but still we're carrying them. And we may have in this incarnation tremendous opportunity to heal and harmonize mountains of samskaras from previous incarnations. And so the Shankaracharya says, just a few instants of samadhi can reduce to ashes mountains of samskaras. Some types of samskara, the only way to reduce them is to live out situations in which they would ordinarily or habitually flare up in a particular pattern and live it out in a different way, repeatedly several times, so the whole system gets it, I'm no longer trapped. But there are other tendencies that maybe we can just ash them before they even get to that stage. There's that when we cultivate that deep integration, the system rejoices in it so much that the potential for certain limiting patterns to get any hold over us, they just dissolve in the influence of that samadhi. But things which already have traction, you might meditate 40 years and you experience all sorts of transcendent deep experience. But certain types of habit, you need to prove to yourself in the arena of action, because they're already embedded within this vehicle. So you need to prove, you need to rewire, recalibrate this system. And Krishna says this later on. The established one moves through the field of all the senses, of all the different stimuli, steadily. It's so good to be doing a Gita here.
You know we're going to 9 o'clock.
Are we going to 9 o'clock? Oh, all right, fine. Okay, we can continue. Okay. I'm confused because
I learned at the weekend, which is this, because we were talking about how there's only so much you can do in meditation. You have to, it's in your body a lot of, like exactly what you're saying, that all this stuff is in your body, your habits in your body, and so you have to go and live and do something to get through it. My friend she's Soviet, Latvian, descended from Koreans who moved to the Soviet Union, and her grandmothers and stuff are shaman women. And they told her that what you do in order to prepare the body for changes, you eat a hot chili, Korean, stuff. And it's basically, and it's tapas, it's the transformation fire, so that your body can get over itself and actually go and do something. Ash. I like it when there are echoes, so that you're...
Yeah.
It's like Arjuna breaking down in tears as well, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, the tears of the chili, exactly.
I was confused because we started on Friday at 6. Yes, okay. So we'll continue. Let's do 17 and 18. We'll do 17 and 18 together. Avinashitu tadviddi, avinashitu tadviddi, yena sarvamidam tatam, yena sarvamidam tatam, vinashamavyayasyasya, vinashamavyayasyasya, nakaschit kartumarati, nakaschit kartumarati. Antavanta imedeha, antavanta imedeha, nityasyokta sharirina, nityasyokta sharirina, anashino prameyasya, anashino prameyasya. Tasmad yutyasva bharatam, tasmad yutyasva bharatam. So here, that last part of those two verses, tasmad, that means therefore. Yudyasva bharata. So what do we say bharata means?
Born of the land of Bharat.
Yeah, so you who are a child of nature, you who are a child of this land. And Yudyasva, can you guess what Yudyasva might mean? We've had the word Yoda and Yutta. What's Yutta?
Like someone that embodies wisdom?
No, Yutta, remember we had, Yutta is the battle, yeah? And Yoda, the warrior. Yudyasva is the imperative form of the verb yud, to fight. Yudyas, therefore fight, Bharata, you who are a child of this land. Now what did we say? We said a little bit about this verb yud last week, yeah? When we spoke about the battlefield setting. What does yud connote? Very strongly in Sanskrit, that fight does not necessarily connote in English. So the denotations of fight and yudha, the primary denotations are very close. But then what the word points to, what it actually means is laden with different emphases in the Sanskrit. So yud doesn't just mean fight. What does it mean? It means make a sincere effort. It means make a steadfast effort, like engage. Be heroically present. Be present to the degree that you will see the things that would scare you, that will cause you to have to rouse the warrior, courageous spirit within you. So he says, therefore Arjuna fight. So why is he telling him to fight? Why is he telling him to engage? So he says in the 17th, Avinashitu. Avinashi, nash is to destroy. Avinashitu means basically imperishable, indestructible. Viddi, know Arjuna. Yena sarvamidam tatam, that all of this is pervaded by the imperishable. So remember the previous verse, he said, basically when something is, it's not going away. Once something has become, it's not going to not become. Everything is. You're existing in existence. You are part of this pure conscious essence. Everything that comes and goes, the whole realm of manifest nature, is pervaded by the imperishable pure consciousness. Vinasham avyayasyasya nakaschit kartumarati. Nobody can destroy the imperishable. So what's the message? No one can destroy the imperishable. Everything is pervaded by the imperishable. Therefore, Arjuna, you are imperishable. Therefore, have no fear. Antavant imedeha. Imedeha, these bodies. Antavant, they have beginnings and ends. Is this true? We know this. Nityas yogta sharirinaha. But the embodied soul, the soul that dwells in the body, that animates the body, Nityas yogta. Nityasya is said to be, is recognized to be part of the eternal. The body comes and goes. but the soul that animates it is connected to, is part of that which doesn't come and go, which persists, which is eternal. Anashinaha, it is indestructible, your soul. Apraneyasya, and it is unfathomable. You cannot measure it, it is not quantifiable. Tasmat, therefore, fight, Arjuna. In other words, therefore, Arjuna, strive to recognize yourself. You are immortal. Here you are, identified with limitation and fear. I'm telling you, Arjuna, Krishna says, your conscience tells you, there's no need to be identified with this fear. Take this amazing chance of having a human body and a human birth. Rise up, summon the greatest perspective you can muster. Come to the center as best you can. Look from that perspective. And seek to recognize your essence. Another way you could think of yudhyasva is align yourself with conscience. Practice. Keep practicing. Practice, you know, sometimes you do the Mysore on a Saturday and Sunday, which is chai Saturday. Has anybody ever said at chai time, well, I finished practice early today? Has anybody ever said that? Sunday. But have you ever caught yourself saying, oh, I finished practice? We say this. The idea is, no, we want to meet the person who's finished practice, yeah?
Or people say we come in to the studio to practice.
Yeah. So we want to learn to practice all the time. That's what it means. Therefore, Arjuna, fight. Practice all the time.
And in regards to that, what you said about your teacher saying that in 48 hours you can maintain awareness of the gap between the in-breath and the out-breath.
Yeah.
Can you enlarge a bit on that in relation to that practical presence continuously and what that would achieve?
So this idea of here we see a teaching that was given by a master, so there's always layers to it. So it doesn't just mean observe the gap between the breath unbroken for 48 hours. It means live in the gap. Where is the gap? The gap is the junction. The gap is yoga. Everything in life is pulsating. There is expansion, there is contraction. Have you noticed how certain energies or impulses or desires or tendencies within you also expand and contract at different rhythms? Yeah? Different parts of us work in different rhythms. We have our physiological rhythms, we have our emotional rhythms. Like, have you noticed, I don't know how but for me, for example, I noticed that at certain times of years, certain impulses are much stronger with me. Like, I have some friends who, some as you know, I travel quite a lot. I've not spent the whole year on one continent for a long time. But some of my friends who do that have spoken to me about how they really cherish the contemplative withdrawal that autumn invites, like the later autumn, and the kind of high energy exuberance that summer invites. Yeah? And that certain types of indulgence, you might even call it, or certain types of exploration. Like, I've noticed, for example, I hope Judy doesn't mind me saying this, but Judy was disappointed last weekend because only, did we have 16? Only 16 people came for yoga and the song. And we were discussing why are the numbers lower than before. Those who came, was there any reason in terms of what was on offer? But we thought, after sometimes come in November, and it seems to be a nice moment of the year for let's inquire, let's look inside. And in the spring, maybe people are more inclined to be doing external things. Just as for example. So we have all these different rhythms. Is this true? And the idea in yoga is to be the lord of the dance. So Shiva as Nataraja, the lord of the dance. He's depicted as a dancing figure within a wheel of fire. And this signals these 5 acts of consciousness. So when Shiva is dancing, he's standing on a small figure called apasmara, forgetfulness. His forgetting has become his support. Our limited ideas, our limiting conditionings, when we meet them and face them, we can transform them into our support in our lives. When Shiva stands on apasmara and dances, and he's whirling so fast his hair is horizontal, and yet he's in perfect balance. He's holding in one hand a dual-headed drum, which signifies Srishti, creation, known in Buddhist terminology as samsara. Srishti is to sow. It's like the expansion of creation. And it's duality. As soon as something comes into manifestation, it's experiencing, it's born, it's going to die. This is the realm of nature. Another hand, Shiva is there, is in the gesture of Abhaya Mudra, have no fear. This symbolizes sustenance, the inertia of things, the maintaining quality of consciousness, that which persists. Another of the hands, there's 4 of them, is wielding fire, transformation. Sometimes people talk about Shiva representing destruction, but it's the transformation from things to one form to another. The other arm is like an elephant's trunk, and it's pointing down to Jarnu, to the junction place of the knee, symbolizing that through yoga one can transform that which was previously keeping us in a state of forgetfulness and become established in the center. And Shiva, in the center of the wheel of fire, as he's moving so fast, he has a look of great serenity on his face. And what's in the center of the wheel? The heart of the dancer. In other words, he is completely in rhythm with all the laws of the universe, you might say, with all aspects of himself. Now this is what the yogin has to cultivate, to be in rhythm, to be in tune, to be in harmony. Does anybody here play the guitar? You do, Tony? Do you have just a 6-string, yeah?
And a 12 string, yeah.
And a 12 string, because I sometimes say, how many strings does a guitar have? And I say 6, and then people say no. So 6 or 12 strings. Let's just say, can you tune it by ear?
Yeah.
So Tony knows how to play the guitar. He gives me his 6-string, he's tuned it perfectly. I don't know how to play the guitar. He gives me his perfectly tuned guitar, I strum the 6 strings, how does it sound? Beautiful, yes? I think, oh thank you, what a lovely gift. I don't even know if to learn how to play it. It's not like the violin. And it sounds so lovely. But then if I leave the instrument, and the wind comes, and the rain comes, and the sun comes, and the heating comes on and off, and then 3 or 4 days later, I pick up the guitar, and I'm expecting to make the same sweet, melodious, harmonic sound. What am I likely to experience? A jarring disappointment, because what has happened? And why is it out of tune? Because all the strings are slightly different. They're all different thicknesses, and they may be even made of different materials. And the little winding, what do you call them? The key, the pegs. They all, there's all these idiosyncrasies in them. They all come out of tune at a slightly different degree. How many strings are there in this instrument?
72,000.
Which means?
Many.
Many. Yeah? So to keep all those instruments in tune, to keep all of the rhythms, all of the expansion and contractions of our being in a state of integration is a challenge. That's why you have to be a hero. That's why that's why you have to fight, Arjuna. You have to have that resolute conviction. It's not going to be a one-weekend affair. It's not going to be accomplished in the blink of an eye. You've got to keep at it. You've got to keep striving, keep engaging. But, Arjuna, your essence is inviolable, is imperishable. So it's worth fighting for. It's worth making that effort. Is it worth making that effort to come to the center?
Yes.
Yes, what do we experience? Life gets a little bit sweeter, richer, fuller. Yes, we still experience ups and downs, but the trajectory is like, oh yeah, my life is getting a little bit, I do know myself a bit more. I do enjoy things more deeply. Simple things I enjoy more richly, yes? So it's worth making this effort. Any questions? 19th. Ya enam veti hantaram, ya enam veti hantaram, yaschainam manyate hatam, yaschainam manyate hatam, ubauto na vijanito, ubauto na vijanito, nayam andina hanyate, nayam andina hanyate. Najayati mriyate va kadachin, Najayati mriyate va kadachin, Nayam bhutva bhavitavana bhuyaha, Nayam bhutva bhavitavana bhuyaha, Ajo nitya shashvatoyam purano, Ajo nitya shashvatoyam purano, nanyate anyamani sharire, nanyate anyamani sharire, veda vinashinam nityam, veda vinashinam nityam, yainam achamaviyayam, Yaina Machamaviyam Katam Sapurashaf Parta, Katam Sapurashaf Parta, Kam Gatayati Antikam, Kam Gatayati Antikam. So these three verses, somewhat controversial verses. Ya enam veti hantaram, yaha cha enam manyate hatam. So hata is the verb to kill or to slay or to bring an end to. So ya enam veti hantaram. Yaha means the one who, veti, the one who thinks, or the one who thinks he knows or thinks she knows that this enam hantaram is the killer. Yahacha, and the one who thinks that this is killed, ubautau, both of these, na vijanitaha. These two perspectives are mistaken, neither of them sees clearly. Na ayam handina hanite. This neither kills or is killed. So what is he talking? What is this? The inviolable, deathless essence. So here, Krishna is basically telling Arjuna, it depends what you're identified with. If you're identified with your essence, then you no longer fear death. The inviolable essence does not kill or kill. The inviolable essence is beyond the comings and goings. If you are identified with your bodily form and you do an action, then that action will have a residue. So this verse is not an excuse to think, oh well, I'll just go around killing things I don't like. No. If you don't like things, you're already identified with duality. But what Krishna is saying is basically, when you come to the realm of full realization, then you're not in this place of birth and death anymore. This or that, he's talking about the inviolable essence. Then in the 20th verse, Najayate mriyate va kadachin. Never at any time is this born or dying. Nayam bhutva bhavitavana bhuya. Nor is there any question that once it has come into existence, it will ever cease to exist or not come into existence again and again. How is this so? Ajjaha, it is unborn. Nityaha, it is eternal. Shashvata, it is everlasting. Ayam, this, so. Puranaha, is ancient, it goes way back. Nahanyate hanyamane sharire, and it is not killed in the event that the body is killed. So here what Krishna is starting to do, and it's very interesting that Krishna does this right at the beginning. He starts to go into some considerable detail, and this will continue now for the next 8 or 9 verses after this, of the nature of this deathless, inviolable, imperishable essence. So here in 19th and 20th he says, when you're identified with ultimate reality, then you know that that isn't the things that come and go. This is not born, nor does it die. Nor is there ever any question that once it has come into existence, it will not continue to exist, or will not come into manifest existence in different forms again and again. It is unborn, eternal, everlasting, ancient, and it does not die in the case that the body is killed. It is not killed if the body is killed. So what's Krishna basically telling Arjuna? There is a light that never goes out. Yeah? Your soul, nobody can put it out. And what else is Krishna doing here? As he's talking about, he's also making it very clear, okay, I've got some work to do then. Yeah? Because do we experience this? No. So he's laying it out from the top down. And this is part of one of the many distinguishing features in the Yoga Shastra, the Yoga system, that demonstrate its pragmatism. If we identify with our actions, if we identify with the things that come and go, then we know, we can still deepen our practice. So he's laying it right out here. Are you identified with the eternal and inviolable? No? Okay, well keep making an effort in that direction. Let's do 21. Veda vinashinam nityam, Veda vinashinam nityam, Yaina machamaviyam, Yaina machamaviyam, Katam sapurashaf parte, Katam sapurashaf parte, Kam gatayati hantikam, Kam gatayati hantikam. So Veda avinashinam nityam yaha. Yaha, one who knows Veda, avinashinam nityam, this imperishable, eternal, yenam ajmavyam, this unborn, indestructible, inviolable. Katam, how could such a person, Prita, you who are the child of your mother, Partha, kam ghatyati handikam, how can that person kill, hanti, or ghatyati, cause to be killed? In other words, when you become identified with